Hello, greetings, and welcome to the show Crime Take. Today, we delve into a chilling story that will leave you questioning humanity. In 2012, a case in Delhi left me stunned, known as the Nearby case. It was a story that made me question, how can a person commit such a heinous act? We are all human, with the same features, the same senses. Yet how can some people harbor such terrifying thoughts? Today's tale might make every other story seem insignificant. This story is so horrifying, it might leave you speechless. The story revolves around a 17-year-old girl from Japan, Junko Furuta, where she had just celebrated her birthday 3 days prior, and this happened. The story begins on 25th November 1989, just 3 days after her 17th birthday. This is a tale that will make you question humanity and the depths of its darkness. Meet Junko Furuta, a 17-year-old girl, born in 2072, popular and brilliant. Junko was born in Misato, Saitama Prefecture. She lived with her parents, her older brother, and her younger brother. Junko is studying at Yashio-Minami High School. She's not just a student, but also a part-time worker at an electronics shop. Junko was respected and loved by many. She excelled in studies, games, and other activities, but not everyone was a fan. Some boys became her enemies. One of these boys was Hiroshi Miyano. He had a crush on Junko, but there was a problem. Who had earned his own reputation, the school bully, going beyond just the standard high school tyrant. He was a low-level Yakuza gangster, Chimpiro. Originally, the word Yakuza was synonymous with gangster, and it still is, but it now also serves as the umbrella term for organized crime syndicates in Japan. So, unaware of this, when one of Miyano's friends asked Junko to be his girlfriend, she declined his proposal, as Junko wanted to focus on her studies only. She was different from the others, who indulged in drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes. She was not a part of that group. Now, here this story takes a turn. Remember, this tale of revenge and courage, set in the heart of the city, where a young woman named Junko Furuta lived a simple life. Junko's days were filled with studying, working part-time at an electronics shop, and cycling home. Her life was a cycle, school to shop, shop to home. And on the other hand, a man named Miyano from Yakuza gang proposed her multiple times, but each time she refused, which causes resentment to grow in his heart. One night of November 25, 1989, Miyano and his gang set out on a mission. Their job was to find Junko alone and to harm her. That night, their eyes fell on Junko. When Junko cycled home from work, Miyano spotted her. He told his friends, "She is the one." They were ready to take revenge. Some of Miyano's friends sped ahead, knocked Junko off her bicycle, and she fell. This marked the beginning of a dark chapter in Junko's life, a chapter filled with fear and uncertainty. But remember, every story has a hero, and in this one, it's Junko. Miyano, under the pretense of witnessing the attack by coincidence, approached Junko and offered to walk her home safely, and she trusted him. But this trust was soon betrayed. Upon gaining her trust, he raped her in the warehouse, and again in a nearby hotel, threatening to kill her. From the hotel, Miyano called Minato and his other friends, Ogura and Yasushi Watanabe, and bragged to them about the rape. Ogura reportedly asked Miyano to keep her in captivity in order to allow numerous people to sexually assault her. The group had a history of gang rape and had recently kidnapped and raped another girl, whom they released afterward. Junko was brutally beaten and threatened. She was told to call her family, lie about her whereabouts, and assure them she was safe. The threat was clear: do this or they would harm her and her family. In fear, Junko made the call. She told her family she was fine, safe, and not to involve the police. Around 3 a.m., Miyano took Furuta to a nearby park, where Minato, Ogura, and Watanabe were waiting. They had learned her home address from a notebook in her backpack and told her they knew where she lived and that Yakuza members would kill her family if she attempted to escape. The 4 boys overpowered her, took her to a house in the ISA district of Adachi, and gang raped her. The house, which was owned by Minato's parents, soon became their regular gang hangout. On the other hand, on 27 November, Furuta's parents contacted the police about her disappearance. To discourage further investigation, the kidnappers forced her to call her mother 3 times to convince her that she had run away but was safe and staying with some friends. They also forced Furuta to stop the police investigation. Days passed. Junkos moved between different locations, including the homes of her captors. The connection to the Yakuza, a notorious criminal organization, became apparent. The abuse escalated. It is reported that around 100 people, friends of the captors and Yakuza members, were involved. The numbers are staggering. Junko was violated approximately 500 times, sometimes 25 times in a single day. This horrific ordeal lasted for 44 days. One day, Miyano's friend left a phone behind. Seizing the chance, Junko dialed Tokyo's emergency number. But before the police could answer, the phone's owner returned and hung up. Everyone stayed silent, aware of the involvement of Miyano and Yakuza. They didn't dare to speak up. Another time, Junko managed to call the police again. This time, they traced the call to his house. The police arrived at the doorstep ready to search, but Junko's parents were home. They assured the officers that everything was fine, just them and their absent son. The police, convinced, left the house. And so Junko's story continues, a tale of a brilliant teenager in a perilous situation. Many times, screams echoed from a house. Some people heard it, had doubts, but did nothing. A few brave souls went to the police, reporting the disturbing sounds. But the police ignored it, claiming they'd already checked and found nothing. Junko was subjected to unimaginable cruelty. On cold days, she was forced to sleep outside or on a bare floor or locked in the freezer for hours. When people came, she was paraded in front of them, her dignity stripped away. The physical torture Junko endured was horrific. Burning bulbs were inserted into her body. She was laid on the ground, and heavy objects were dropped on her stomach. This tragic story of Junko Furuta is a stark reminder of the importance of speaking up when we suspect something is wrong. Junko was subjected to unimaginable horrors. She was used like a punching bag, hung from the roof, while multiple people took turns to hit her. Even a hammer was used until she lost consciousness. Her tormentors didn't stop there. They applied hot wax to her entire body, forced her to eat raw cockroaches. Her hands, face, eyes, nose, ears, all bore the marks of relentless abuse. Over time, she lost her senses. Perhaps the pain was too much to bear. Despite her condition, these monsters didn't stop. The torture continued for 44 days. During this time, she was violated by over 100 people, and countless times, a number too horrific to remember. On November 25th, 1988, Junko was abducted. By January 4th, 1989, she was unrecognizable, her body covered in blood, her face swollen. Miyano and his friends, her captors, proposed a game. They promised Junko her freedom if she won. It was a traditional Japanese game, and by some stroke of luck, Junko won. Miyano's reaction to her victory was not joy, but rage. He decided to punish her, burning her hands and feet slowly. Fuel was added. The flames grew, engulfing Junko. They promised to extinguish the fire to let her go. But the fire was too intense. It could not be extinguished. After enduring 2 hours in the fire and 44 days of torment, Junko Furuta tragically passed away. This is a story of unimaginable cruelty, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the hearts of men. Subko was held captive, subjected to unspeakable acts. After her death, her body was concealed in a drum filled with cement. The drum was then discarded, a final act of disrespect. 44 days of torment ended, but it wasn't until 20 days later that the perpetrators were caught. They were apprehended for assaulting another woman, leading police to the house where Junko had been held. When the police arrived, they found remnants of the horrific acts committed there. Clothes, sharpened things, and the signs of abuse. It was clear that this place had been a site of immense suffering. In a place where a girl named Junko Furuta once lived, a chilling story unfolds. The police, unaware of her story, they are investigating a separate case. They interrogate a man named Miyano, suspected of another woman's rape. During the investigation, they stumble upon clues that hint at a darker crime. In their confusion, the police mention a different case, a missing woman whose body was found. They suggest a connection, unknowingly leading Miyano to believe they're onto him. Miyano breaks down, confessing to a crime they hadn't known about. He speaks of a drum filled with cement, a body hidden beneath it, found outside Tokyo. The police, taken aback, clarified they were referring to a different case. But it's too late. The truth is out, a horrifying crime revealed, thanks to a brave act of calling the police. The story of Junko Furuta is a tragic tale that came to light in Japan when her body was discovered. The main culprits were 4 young boys, aged between 17 and 18. Under the Juvenile Act, they were treated as children, their names kept secret. Junko's ordeal was horrific. Her eyes were burnt, her nose filled with blood, forcing her to breathe through her mouth. Her body was brutally violated, and she was forced to consume unthinkable things. She was given only cockroaches to eat, her own urine to drink. Every day, 20-25 people would come and assault her. She was treated like a punching bag, subjected to unimaginable violence. When the editor of a Japanese magazine heard this story, he decided to break the silence. Despite the country's Juvenile Act, he believed these boys were not juveniles, but human beasts. The story moved an entire nation and brought tears to every eye that heard it. The story was published, revealing the names and faces of the perpetrators. This sparked a riot in Japan, and the media followed suit. The victim, known as Furuta, became a household name. Despite the public outcry, the law allowed the case to be tried under juvenile justice. 4 out of 5 culprits were sentenced to 7 years. The main perpetrator, Miyano, received a 17-year sentence. They appealed to the Supreme Court, hoping for reduced sentences. A female judge presided over the case. Instead of reducing, she added 3 years to Miyano's sentence and 2 years to the others. By their mid-30s, all had been released. Today, they are free in Japan, occasionally caught in different crimes. But the torture and humiliation a 17-year-old girl endured, the hell she survived in 44 days, remains unforgettable. It's a story that brings forth a fear of death just by thinking about it. One can only wonder how she spent her last 2 hours, being burnt alive. The petrol was too much, and she died, a tragic end to her suffering. Her tormentors had pushed her to a point where her mental condition was severely affected. The pain had taken away her ability to think and understand. She saw herself as a toy, doing exactly as they commanded. After 44 days, Junko was finally freed from life. But the sad reality is that those who committed these atrocities were freed from their crime by the age of 35. A crime they should forever stand for. So this was the sad and horrific story of Junko Furuta from Japan. Many books have been written about her. The electronics shop where she worked gave her uniform to her family. One incident can ignite a societal conversation, like a stone creating ripples in water. In Japan, a tragedy sparked a nationwide debate about rape and rape laws, just as it did in 2012 in other parts of the world. This incident led to change, not just in conversation, but in action. A park was built in memory of the victim, and her school issued her degree posthumously, a symbolic recognition of her life. These ripples of change continue. It's up to us to support organizations working to end sexual violence. Let's keep the conversation going and turn ripples into waves of change. After that, Junko's funeral was held on April 2, 1989, 1 month after she would have graduated from high school. Her principal presented Junko's high school diploma to her parents. Finally, at her funeral, her future employer gave her uniform as a gift, which was placed in her casket with her. Hiroshi's parents paid Junko's parents 50 million yen for $125,000 Aust as compensation ordered by the court, which required them to sell their family home.